Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to episode 27 of Monorail Memoirs. Today we'll be discussing the pros and cons of staying on-site versus off-site. I have changed my opinion on this quite heftily in the last couple of years. The reality is that it's about a year ago that I signed on for my DVC contract, so I very much bought wholesale into staying on-site. Prior to that, we'd always said off-site, and that's more so what you do, Lauren. So we're going to dig into it,
Yeah.
our opinions, and which we think is better. But before we do that, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, a little bit tired, but getting there. In terms of what do we mean when we say on site versus off site? Staying on site is this idea of staying in the Disney bubble, the idea that you will stay within the confines of the Walt Disney World resort. That has some benefits, but also some limitations as well. And when we're talking about staying off site, quite literally the opposite, whether that be a hotel, whether that be a villa, whether that be camping if you wish, because campsites are available in Central Florida. Not sure why you would, but they're available.
Would not do
And
that.
would not do that at all. But the point is, those are the options. So I'm gonna speak in defense of staying on site because that is more so my thing. So I'm gonna get straight into the pros here. Then one of the really big obvious ones for me is that you are already in Disney. You get to stay within Disney your entire holiday. You wake up in Disney. You go downstairs for breakfast or you go and get your transport on Disney transport. You then go to your Disney theme park. You stay within the Disney bubble. And you know, the accessibility it has for midday naps is unrivaled. I didn't realize how important a good midday nap was. That's a lie. I didn't realize how much better it feels to make the decision and be in bed. When we went in May, we were in Animal Kingdom Lodge and we happened to be in Animal Kingdom. So yes, they're very close together. I accept that. But we made the decision to go for a midday nap. 20 minutes later, I was asleep in my bed. That's unrivaled. You cannot beat that. And especially if you're in the warmer months, because Florida gets really hot, unsurprisingly. So that extra hour that you've just saved with lack of transit time, you get to sleep. So I think that is a huge win. Another one I want to bring up, though, that I think is more important is actually the extended hours that you get. So Disney parks are open from X to Y. Fair enough. And granted, this perk used to be better than it is now. But for anyone staying in a deluxe resort, certain days of the week at certain park, you can get extended hours. So when we were there in May, as mentioned, we were able to get an extra 3 hours in Magic Kingdom on like a Wednesday night or something like that, which meant we got everything done again because it was only deluxe guests that were staying there. Only deluxe guests who wanted to be in the park till midnight, because a lot of people don't want to be up that late, especially if you've got little ones, if they're traveling the next day or whatever. So these extended evening hours basically mean you get more done because there's fewer crowds.
I do get that. I do get it. But again, you're paying the deluxe price. You know, you don't get that in the All Stars. You don't get that in the moderates. You know, it is only in the deluxe. So I think that argument could be slightly weak because for the very, very few that can afford a deluxe, for the very few that can afford a deluxe resort, I don't think it's benefiting kind of the general population that goes to Disney.
Well, yes and no, because when we did our episode a few weeks ago about doing it on a budget, you point out the most expensive part of a Disney trip are the Disney tickets themselves, or at least it can be depending on how you do it. Why? By doing this, by having the extended hours in the deluxe resorts, you are able to get more for your money because you are doing these extra hours where it is quieter. Your bang for your buck is more. So I understand what you're saying, and I also accept that it's not as good of a benefit as it used to be. That is true. But one thing that staying on site absolutely does have over staying off site is the theming and the immersion that you get by staying within that Disney-esque. It's perhaps more important for children than it is for adults, I accept, but you keep the magic going for longer because the swimming pools are themed swimming pools where, you know, even if you're in All Stars, All Stars is the entry tier on the value side for Disney resorts. So even if you're just in the value tier, you're still getting this Disney storytelling, the decor, the decorations, all of it is just far more themed. And if if what you're doing is you're going there to do Disney, it is the best way to do Disney, not to go on a holiday to Central Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that immersion is just what Disney thrives on, isn't it? You know, that's what makes Disney Disney. As soon as you pass through those gates, you know, in the car or on the Magical Express, or, you know, however you get in there, it's just, everything is just different, because even the signs, even the road signs are different. You know, you are in this kind of Disney bubble, aren't you? And you're right, you know, if you are staying on property, you don't ever have to leave that. They've got some convenience stores on site. You know, you can even get like Walmart or a Target delivery now, apparently, which I've never done before. But you have, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
You know, you can get like your essentials delivered, which is just mind-blowing to me.
I have a fun side bit actually, and I've never told you this story about a Walmart Plus delivery that we got. So we're staying at Kadena Village in Animal Kingdom Lodge, and I didn't have any bags with me. And the guy who did the shopping didn't really get many bags, and so I had a long walk around to get back to my room. And I was like, no, it's fine. I can carry it. I can manage it. And there was a fraying plastic bag with two 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke in. And so I get into the lobby and I go, this isn't going to work. Like, there's just too much here. So I tried to put it on the side. One of the plastic bags rips. The Diet Coke bottle hits the deck, sprays reception up the wall. And I'm just like, it was like something out of a Laurel and Hardy scene. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. And the guy's like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then so I get one of the trolley carts that you would get for normally pushing your suitcases. I put all the stuff on there, and I'm just like, so sorry. I'm just leaving this poor guy dealing with it. Was the way it hit the ground and just sprayed up the wall. I was like, oh God, no. I'm not going to be allowed here. So you're right. You can get Walmart Plus deliveries, Target deliveries, DoorDash, whatever it is. So that's a benefit as you would get in any, you could do it in any hotel really, but it does mean that you don't necessarily have to be armbarred into spending $5 for a packet of Skittles, because that's what it is in the Disney store. There were a couple of the positives that
you don't have to leave.
You don't have to leave. You stay in the Disney bubble. You stay in the bubble. Yeah. There are two other points that I want to raise as positives before I will address some of the downsides of staying on site. But one of the positives is the transportation. You are guaranteed transportation. Even if you do not have a vehicle with you, you are guaranteed to be able to get from your resorts wherever you want to go. And if you do have a car with you, you're not paying the now $35 a day to park at Disney. So if you're there for 10 days, that's $350 that you're not paying an extra because you're able to drive around. So it saves parking fees, which can really add up, obviously, over the course of a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And the final one that I have is for those who are big dining fans. If you're a big Disney dining fan, you can book 60 days out your dining reservations, which is important if you want somewhere like Victoria and Albert's, or you want one of the other bigger named restaurants. You will not get a Victoria and Albert's booking if you are not staying on Disney. It's basically not going to happen. Victoria and Albert's is the Michelin star restaurant that is in the Grand Floridian. It only got its Michelin star a year or 18 months ago, but it is a premier dining experience. You will not get it unless you're staying on Disney. So if you're not staying on site, forget about it. It's not all sunshine and go on.
Sorry, another dining positive is with a lot of bookings, especially, I don't know about the US, but in the UK, if you do stay on Disney, a lot of the dining plans are either kind of reduced or they come with the package depending on which one you're getting. So you don't have to think about food either.
You're absolutely right. There is a package convenience when it comes to staying on site that you don't get off site. So that's another positive in favor of it. But as I was alluding to, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. Let's start with the most obvious one, which is price. Because you know what? Disney's expensive. So I've put this in as just a week in early February in 2026. So it's by no means the busiest time of year. It's by no means, the most attractive. Yes, Festival of the Arts will be on at this point, but it's not got the draw of something like the Food and Wine Festival. This is taken from Disney's own website. which to start with indicates their availability for February is already taken away, because the only All Stars resort that is left is All Stars Music. So sports and movies are already gone. But this is $200 a night averaging, and Disney's Pop Century, which again is still a value resort, is $250 a night. That in itself is quite a lot of money, I accept, and these are quite generic rooms with a bit of Disney theming. If we want to move to the more premier Disney experience, the more deluxe end, yes, the screen I'm about to show you is the most expensive options. There are moderate options in between, but you can see it gets quite expensive. So to stay at Animal Kingdom is $784 a night. Polynesian Village is $815, and the Grand Floridian is $823. For those British listeners we have with us, the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa is effectively going to be about £600 to £650 per night. If you are doing that for a week or 10 days, that is many, many thousands of pounds that you're throwing at this issue. And so a negative is the cost. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. This is true. I would also observe, as I've alluded to already, you just don't get the perks that you used to. Now, this is perhaps me just feeling a little bit aggrieved by it, but the extended evening hours used to apply to more resorts, and it was more common, and there were more options. The discounts that you get are now limited compared to what you used to get. And yes, free dining, the Disney dining plan is coming back somewhat, but it's still not what it used to be. And because you're staying on Disney property, everything that you spend is going to be more expensive than if you got it elsewhere. I completely agree. So price is the biggest downside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said in the positives, you're getting loads of stuff, it's really, really great. But then when you look at those prices, I just think I just cannot, especially coming from a family of 4, you just cannot justify that. It is so expensive. It's just kind of, would you rather do a one-off Disney trip that's like really, really expensive, or would you rather do a handful of other holidays, like if you weren't particularly tied to Disney, or even stay off-site, which is my preference.
Indeed, and we will come on to yours after I have one further point as a negative or a con for staying on site, and that is the rooms themselves are usually quite small. So unless you're staying in some of the refurbished elements of the Grand Floridian, for example, the rooms are quite small. And if you do have a family of 4, as you mentioned, staying in All Stars, there'll be a proper queen size bed, and then there'll be a pull down Murphy bed for the other 2 with a single bathroom. It can start to get pretty cozy in there, and so that is a downside, that compared to other options, you are going to feel a little bit enclosed if you're there with a lot of people for a short space of time. We're going to move on though now, and you've heard enough of my dulcet tones as to why staying on site is better. Lauren, you stay off site all the time. We used to stay off site when we were younger. Tell us then, what are the benefits about staying off site?
Yeah, so for my context, staying off site is villas. Obviously, there is the options of hotels. There's hundreds and hundreds of hotels around the Orlando area, Kissimmee, all that sort of stuff. So I'm coming at it mainly from a villa point of view. So some of my positives won't be true for a hotel staying off site, but hotels staying off site are still miles cheaper. And they do also have a shuttle service, quite a lot of them. Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them do have a shuttle service. I think it can only maybe run 2 or 3 times a day. So you do have to kind of be careful with the amount of times that you want to come in and out of the parks. But if you are worried about paying the Disney price for the hotels and you don't want to have a car, look for a hotel with a shuttle service if you're wanting to do a hotel, because 9 times out of 10 they are free. And as I say, they just take you kind of to and from the parks a couple of times a day. So that is kind of something that's there and a positive. But from a villa point of view, for me, for way more cheaper, I think that you're getting a whole house, essentially, plenty bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a lot of the time a private pool. You don't have a child dive bombing when you're wanting to chill and read your book. For me, it's not kind of taking the Disney out of the holiday, but it's allowing you to have a holiday within a Disney holiday. So what I mean by that is you're not constantly go, next thing, because as you said, with the hotels in Disney, they are just hotel rooms. It's a bed and a bathroom. You know, there is a telly, but there's not much privacy. There's not much really that you can do there other than the public pool that's got a lot of other people in, and it can sometimes get very busy and very loud. You often come back from a holiday in Florida, a Disney holiday, thinking, blooming heck, I need another holiday. Whereas I like to go back. You do. I like to go back, have a chill, maybe read my book. You could even watch some Netflix, you know, whatever. Play in the pool for a bit and then go back into the parks refreshed and ready. And I find that it's a lot less tasking when you do that, and you kind of, sometimes you maybe get sick of it, you know, the constant hustle and bustle. You don't get that. You get that break, for me, with a villa.
I think the price that you mentioned is a huge factor, and to give our viewers an idea, this, as we saw, was the cost of per night. I want to say that again, per night at the deluxe resorts in a random week in February of next year, using a very simple filter of 3 bedrooms or more for areas. Same week in February, in and around the Disney area. You can see to the top of the screen is the Disney resort itself. You can see this is the per week cost. I want to say that again. This is the per week cost. So you think in some of the cases, 2 nights in the Grand Floridian is going to be the same as a week in one of these different Airbnb options. And so, yes, Lauren is correct. The price and the size you get for an off-site villa, especially, is a lot better than staying on site.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get that privacy as well. You know, if you stay in with other people. So I've gone with friends before. And obviously, as I say, I've got a family of 4, and we took 3 of our friends with us. It meant that we could all have our time. You know, it wasn't constantly being in each other's presence, which is also a massive plus. You know, you do have that time to spend in your room or in the pool or whatever, as I've said. But I feel like in a normal Disney holiday, you wouldn't get that level of closeness, but also separation, because you would be in totally different hotel rooms and you'd have to kind of WhatsApp or say, oh, I'll meet you here at this time. And it just feels a little bit more like a logistical nightmare. And also, if you're thinking about those prices for a 3-bedroom, and if you stay with another family, that's a half the cost as well. So you're saying that 2 nights in the Grand Floridian could be a whole week in those areas.
And we've temporarily lost Lauren, but I will finish the thought that she was having. I do agree with what she was saying, that we are in a strange position whereby having more people does make the cost a lot cheaper. Whereas if you were in a hotel, you need to get 2 of the hotel rooms, and it would be a lot harder to do. Hopefully Lauren will be able to rejoin us shortly, but if not, we'll continue pressing before then. One of the things that I think is important is, from a benefit standpoint, is, and she's back with us, but one of the things I think is important from a benefit standpoint for staying offsite is that larger group dynamic that you're able to have. It makes it so much easier than, as Lauren mentioned, this idea of, well, okay, we're all staying in the Grand Floridian. Great. What building number are you in? Well, we're in the 5,000 series. What about you? We're in the 9,000 series. Where do you want to meet? Oh, we'll meet. It does mean that for bigger groups, it does create a more economical option, but also you're able to spend that time together that would be much harder to do staying in a hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I say, when I went with our friends, it was miles easier to say, right, we'll just have an hour and we'll go back out again, you know, but we were in the same place. So you could get a snack, you could be like, oh, are you ready to go now? Oh, yeah. Whereas before, you'd need to like WhatsApp, as I say, or you'd need to say, we'll meet at this place at this time. It just adds that logistics into it that you don't really want to have to think about when you're on holiday.
That's fair. For
me, obviously, another plus would be the price, as we've said, but also kind of getting that exploration aspect. You get to see a little bit of where you are. I know that people want to be in that Disney bubble, and I get it, you know, especially if you're spending all that money on these tickets, you want to immerse yourself in it. but also you're missing a whole kind of country if you've never been to the USA before, or a whole state, or a whole city. You know,
I'm just gonna stop you there. Orlando is not representative of the
no,
United States of America. Having lived in 3 different states, I can confirm it is not representative in the slightest.
it's not. But if I know that the rise of TikTok and, you know, all of these influencers, you might want to go to Target, you might want to go to Walmart, you might want to go to Raising Cane's or whatever it is, you know, the donut shop and the cookie shop, Crumble. You know, you want to experience maybe all of that. And I feel like if you're staying on site, you might feel like you're kind of missing out a little bit on the other parts that you can get from Orlando. Obviously, I know that it's not representative fully of an American, you know, a typical American town. I get that. It's very commercialized. It's very kind of geared towards the tourist. That's kind of where the majority of their income comes from, because it is a swamp at the end of the day. But if you are kind of coming from different countries and you do want that little taste of America, it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, it's better than nothing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if people would come to Disney and be like, "Do you know what we have to do? We have to go and drive on the I-4. Like, that would be an experience." Like, not sold.
No, but they do go for like things like Walmart, Target. You know, oh, I want to see this viral, whatever it is.
I think what you're getting at, which is a very fair point, is it does create a greater degree of flexibility.
Yeah.
It does allow you to go, and if you want to go and do SeaWorld or you want to go and do Epic Universe, it's a lot easier to do than if you're leaving your Disney resort to then drive to SeaWorld or drive to Epic Universe. It doesn't make as much sense. So yeah, you're right. It is an increased flexibility that you get with staying offsite.
And for me, you don't feel like you kind of have to be in Disney. If you're staying on Disney, I feel kind of like you're tied a little bit to Disney, and you kind of wanting to spend your time there, or the whole time there. But as I say, there's like a whole other part of it.
A whole new. I agree. But I do think that we are moving to a point in the conversation where we should discuss the downsides of staying offsite. You want to start, Lauren? Do you want to start?
So obviously you are popping that Disney bubble. You know, you see Happily Ever After, which is the nighttime fireworks showing at Magic Kingdom. Spectacular. You're coming back on a high. And then you have to go to TTC, and then you have to find your car, and then you have to like drive for 20 minutes out of Disney because it takes that long to get to the gate sometimes. And then you have to drive to your villa, and then you have to get in and get all your stuff sorted. You can be an hour and a half.
I was in bed an hour ago.
Exactly. And you kind of like, oh, Happily Ever After, my bubble has actually been burst. Like, I've just shouted at someone on the I-4, or, you know, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
It does kind of ruin that magic a little bit. You aren't immersed in that whole experience. You are just kind of going back to a house, essentially.
Agreed. That Disney magic, just the shine is taken off slightly. But you did touch on another point that I want to bring up, which is, how are you going to get from your offsite property to Disney?
Yeah, it is a bit of a faff, especially, so a lot of these villas advertise 20 minutes from Disney, and you think, oh, fab, 20 minutes, I can be in the park. I hate to break it to you, but 9 times out of 10, that does not mean 20 minutes from Disney. That means 20 minutes from the start of the Disney kind of property. And then when you get to that gate, you can still be 20 minutes from a park. And then if you're going to Magic Kingdom, you then have to park your car, you have to get a tram to the TTC, and then you either have to get a ferry or a monorail to get to Magic Kingdom. You then have to probably queue to scan your pass, go through the train station, and then you're in Magic Kingdom.
Correct. The transportation hassle, it does add a financial element, and I know that we discussed the finances are more beneficial staying offside, but you must have a car to get there. There's no option. And $35 a day to park.
It's definitely a lot.
And you get to drive on the I-4 during commuter hours.
I know. And that can take an hour in itself. You know, if you hit it on a bad run, you are in there for the long haul. And as I say, it bursts that magic then, doesn't it? You know, when you're kind of grappling with other drivers trying to get to your home.
Only because I know he will watch this and he will bring it up, is the amount of times Dad has shouted at people driving on the I4 to and from, because, you know, you're in July, it's hot, it's stressful, you've had a long day, you're trying to go home, and you're shouting at people on the I4. I don't have to deal with that when I'm staying on site. And so, you know, yeah, it's just an added benefit, I think. We will be hearing about this, I'm sure. But as we begin to close, then we'll do, as I think we've mentioned this to you before, the best way to solve any discussion or any argument is that I will present the points in favour of staying off-site. You'll present the points in favour of staying on-site, and then we'll allow our viewers to make up their minds. But for me, staying off-site gives you more flexibility. Is more value for money. You can just do, you can make your money go further. If you want to go and do Universal, you can do it. You want to go and SeaWorld, you can do it. You want to spend a day by the pool, your own private pool, you can absolutely do it. And for big groups, large parties, or even large families, offsite's the way to go.
That was quite a good sell for someone that is
I know.
at the opposing view. Well done. So I'm going to take on-site. So on-site in Disney World, why would you not want to stay on-site at Disney? It is absolutely amazing. Right from the very start, the cast members can never do too much for you. You know, you've got the convenience of getting Walmart to your door, and also you can be back into your room within 20 minutes napping. Why would you not want to do that and stay within the Disney bubble and the magic of it all? It's just absolutely fantastic.
Lauren, you've sold me. Staying on site is better. As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this week. There is a ticker across the bottom saying subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff as usual. We will see you next week. And until then, please stand clear of the doors. Bye, everybody.
Bye.